People think I was afraid to die alone. They see a 92-year-old woman in a house with too many empty chairs, and they project their own shadows onto me. But that wasn't it at all. I wasn't afraid of the end. I was afraid of what they'd do to me while I was still living. There is a profound difference between the two, and if you are anywhere near my age, or if you're watching this because someone you love is, I need you to sit with that difference for a moment. Everything I'm about to tell you depends on it. My name is Martha Langford. I have been a daughter, a wife, a mother, and a widow. For the last 6 years, I have been a woman who lives alone in a house that is stubbornly, beautifully, and sometimes exhaustingly mine. I have buried my husband, Arthur. I have buried friends I've known since the Truman administration. I have watched my children grow into successful, busy people who worry about me in ways that are loving and suffocating in equal measure, sometimes in the same afternoon. I have spent more hours than I care to count sitting in this armchair by the window, the brown one. Arthur always said it clashed with the curtains. I call it my watchtower. From here, I watch the world hurry by, and I think about what it actually means to be old in a society that has decided old is a technical problem to be managed, like a leaky faucet or a glitchy software update. I want to tell you about the year my daughter, Catherine, decided I needed help. I want to talk about the options. In America, we love that word, options. But when you're 90, options is just a polite word for surrender. This isn't a tidy story. There's no grand epiphany where everyone realizes they were wrong, but it is a true story. And at 91, true is the only currency I have left. It started on a Tuesday in November. The light was that flat gray that makes the trees look defeated. Catherine called. I knew the tone. It's the parenting your parent tone. Mom, she said, we need to talk. That "we" was the first blow. It meant she and her husband, Mark, had already held a summit. They had discussed my life over Chardonnay in their modern kitchen, probably after the kids were in bed, using the same hushed tones they used when the dog got sick. They drove up on a Saturday. Mark sat at my table and drank his coffee like it was a chore. He's a good man, Mark, but he runs out of things to say to a 90-year-old woman after 40 minutes. I've always respected him for not pretending otherwise. Catherine, however, had a notebook. Mom, she said, we've been thinking about your options. Option 1, I move in with them. Option 2, a professional caregiver, a stranger in my kitchen. Option 3, a senior living community, a place with staff and activities. I looked at Catherine. She has her father's forehead, wide, honest, and currently creased with a fear that broke my heart. You see, it's easy to be angry at someone for being wrong. It's much harder to be angry at them for being afraid for you. So, I did what a mother does. I protected her from her own guilt. I said, all right, Catherine, let's try your first idea. I'll stay with you for a bit. I stayed for 8 weeks. Catherine's house is beautiful. It smells like expensive candles and organic laundry detergent. My great-grandchildren, Leo and Chloe, are loud and joyful in that specific way only small people can be. Leo used to climb into my lap without asking, and I'd forgotten the weight of a child. The specific, alive weight of someone who trusts you entirely with their body. But the thing about living in your daughter's house is that you quickly become a guest in your own life. They were unfailingly kind, but kindness can be a cage. They had a routine, a tightly scheduled, high-performance American routine, and I was inserted into it like a piece of furniture that didn't quite fit the aesthetic. Dinner was at 6 p.m. I've never been a 6 p.m. dinner person. Arthur and I always ate at 7:30 or 8 with the news on low and a glass of something, But 6 was when the children ate, and it was easier if we all ate together. So I ate at 6 and smiled. I woke at 5 a.m., as I have for 60 years, but I stayed in that guest bed, staring at the ceiling until 7:30. I didn't want to disturb the flow. I didn't want to be the reason Mark was late for his conference call. One morning, I stood in the hallway and heard Mark's voice. "It's just the morning bathroom schedule, Kat. It's getting tricky." Catherine's reply was too low to hear, followed by a long, heavy silence. I wasn't a family member. I was a logistics issue. I cried that night. Not because I was sad, but because of the relief of finally admitting the truth. I was a guest. And a guest is someone who is waiting to go home. I went home. Catherine was relieved, which hurt, though I didn't let it show. Then came option 2, Sarah, the caregiver. Sarah was a professional. She arrived at 8 Cabercas and left at 4 Longcas. She cleaned my kitchen so thoroughly I couldn't find my favorite tea mug for 3 days. She made me nutritionally appropriate lunches that tasted like damp cardboard because she was terrified of salt. She called me Mrs. Langford. After 90 years of being Martha, being mom, being grandma, I was suddenly a case file. I was a client. Let me tell you about a kitchen. To Sarah, it was a workspace. To me, it was a sanctuary. I'd made my children's lunches at that counter for 22 years. I'd cried into that sink when my father died. I danced with Arthur in that very spot when the kids were finally at camp. My kitchen is 40 years of my life pressed into the floorboards. To have a stranger standing there, humming a song I didn't know while she moved my spice jars, felt like a violation. And then there was the money. The agency cost more per month than my pension could handle. Catherine offered to pay, but I've always carried my own weight. I will not be a line item in my daughter's budget. So we looked at option 3, the community. It was a bright place, cheerful colors, staff members who called me sweetheart within 5 minutes. They showed me a room, a bathroom with handrails. There was a board on the wall for daily activities. 9 a.m., morning stretches. 10 a.m., crafts. 12 p.m., lunch. 2 p.m., film. 4 p.m., social hour. I stood in that room and felt a coldness in my bones. I have been making my own decisions since the Great Depression. I have outlived wars and recessions. And now, a cheerful 24-year-old with a clipboard was going to tell me that at 2 p.m. I will watch a film. I have never socialized on a schedule. On the drive home, I looked out the window and I realized what was happening. They weren't trying to help me live. They were trying to make sure I didn't die in a way that was inconvenient or messy for them. They were trading my agency for their peace of mind. I told Catherine, not yet, maybe someday, but not yet. The solution didn't come from a notebook. It came from a paper bag. It was a Tuesday in April. I was at my mailbox. The house next door had been empty for a long time, but a new tenant had moved in. Her name was Maya. She was 29. She was a single mother. And that afternoon, she was a mess. She was wrestling with a stroller, a toddler who was screaming because he didn't want to wear shoes, and a paper bag of groceries that was starting to tear at the bottom. She looked the way people look when they have been holding the world together for too long and they only have one hand left. I know that look. I walked over. I said, "Can I hold something?" She looked at me like I was a ghost. Then she just exhaled and handed me the paper bag. I held it while she managed the stroller and the crying boy, Leo. Maya was alone in this city. No family, no safety net. She was terrified, not of dying, but of failing. And suddenly, the silence in my house didn't feel like a problem anymore. It felt like a resource. Maya, I said a few days later, I'm 91. I sit in that chair all day. If you need to go to an interview, or if you just need to sleep for 2 hours, bring Leo over. He can breathe on my cabinet glass. I don't mind. It started as a favor. It became a life. Maya's daughter, Chloe, started stopping by after school. She's 7. 7-year-olds are wonderful because they haven't learned to be polite to old people yet. They just treat you like a person. She'd sit at my kitchen table and ask, "Martha, why is your skin so crinkly?" I'd tell her, "'Cause I've lived a lot of sunshine, Chloe." She'd ask if I was alive during the olden days when everything was black and white. I'd laugh and explain that the world has always been in color. We just didn't know how to capture it on film. In return, Maya became the caregiver the agency couldn't provide. She'd bring over a bowl of whatever she'd cooked. She'd change the light bulbs I couldn't reach. She'd help me with the grocery bags. We weren't a senior living solution. We were a village. One afternoon, Catherine came over unannounced. She found me on the floor, not because I'd fallen, but because I was building a fort out of blankets for Leo. I was covered in lint and my knees ached, but I was there. Catherine was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Mom, you seem like yourself." I hadn't realized I'd stopped seeming like myself until she said it. The business of being useful, the business of being needed, had pulled me back to shore. I am 91 years old. I live alone. And yes, some days I am still afraid. I fell last January in the hallway. I lay there for a long time, looking up at the ceiling. I thought, this is it. And then I thought, I'm fine. I'm just on the floor. It took me 20 minutes to crawl to the phone. I didn't call Catherine. I called Maya. She was over in 30 seconds. She just helped me up, sat me in my brown chair, and made me a cup of tea with way too much sugar. "Don't tell Catherine," I whispered. "I won't," she said, "but you're eating dinner at my house tonight. I don't know how much longer this will last. Bodies have their own schedules. One morning, the stairs will win. I'm not a fool, but until then, I am not a problem to be managed. I am not a guest in someone else's routine. I am not a line on a clipboard. I am Martha Langford. I made my own lunch today. I decided not to watch a film at 2 p.m. Instead, I sat in my clashing brown chair and watched the birds. Chloe is coming over at 4 to show me her spelling test. And tonight I will eat a very late dinner with plenty of salt, and I will listen to the news as loud as I want. My advice before you sign the papers, before you move into the guest room, before you let the experts take the wheel, go get your mail. Hold a paper bag for someone who is struggling. Find someone who is failing in a different direction than you are, and see if your two struggles can lean against each other and stand upright. Life doesn't end when you get old. It only ends when you are no longer valuable to the people around you. I am still here. My house is still too big. My chair still clashes, and it is finally exactly enough.